Set the timer for an hour.
Yeah,
It goes off.
well, this would be. Would get criticized, like, you didn't respond to my text.
Nothing like noise, right? Okay. I would like to call this meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. We're going to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we're going to remain standing for a moment for words of inspiration. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this day and for this little city called Clawson. We thank you for the people who choose to work here, the people who choose to live here, and the people who choose to have businesses here. We thank you for your provisions. We thank you for setting people up around us that are encouraging and kind. We ask that you make us more of an encouraging and kind community and bless us in all things. In Jesus' name, amen. May we have a roll call, please, Michelle?
Councilmember Anderson.
Here.
Councilmember Binkowski.
Here.
Mayor Milan.
Yes, here.
Mayor Pro Tem Moffett.
Present.
Councilmember Shepherd.
Here.
Okay, we're all accounted for, and would someone like to make a motion to approve our agenda?
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve the agenda for April 1st, 2025 as presented.
Support.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Madam Mayor, ask that we remove 8B from the consent agenda.
Support.
Meeting.
Discussion.
I think the minutes are incomplete, so I'd like to discuss it outside of the consent agenda.
What needs to be corrected?
They don't include any of the supplementary material that we saw,
Oh, okay. You mean
the slides.
oh, okay. So as far as you're thinking that we'll have it for the next time?
Sure, we don't have to approve them today.
Yeah. All right.
Or we could approve them and ask that they be included in the packet moving forward with the, filed.
Honestly, with the consent agenda, I don't even think I have to, it's just enough for me to ask to remove it. I do not believe that we even need to vote on it. It should just be removed.
That's correct. That's correct, Madam Mayor, and you just discuss it in the, you add it as an item at the end of your new business.
So it becomes new business.
It becomes new business, that's all.
Okay.
So 9E. Madam Mayor. I did include the slide content in the minutes. If that you're talking about what was presented, the items under each department was what was on the slides, so.
I didn't see any of that in the minutes that I looked online, so maybe I can look again.
I have a copy here, you want to?
I'm looking at my packet and I see no slides.
Well, they weren't in the slide, they weren't the slides, but they were the content of all the slides.
I'd like the slides.
I don't know if we can put those in a Word document. This is the content that was on each of the slides. I guess we can look at that.
This is perhaps a separate added item.
Madam Mayor.
It's actually in there. The content of the agenda was from the 25th meeting is in these minutes. Now, it's not the exact slideshow that you saw, but the content is there.
Well, maybe we can discuss this when it comes time to discuss it. Right now, I'm just asking that we remove it from the consent agenda, which should be automatically honored, as the city attorney just stated.
Are you stating one person can change the agenda on their own?
No, ma'am, it's just the consent agenda as a total can, those are items that you automatically agree on. If one of the members of the body asks for an item to be handled separately or to be added to the agenda to be discussed, then it automatically goes to be handled further down as an added item at the end.
Which we've done often. I just thought we always agreed upon it. That's all.
Yeah, I believe as a matter of course you have, but it is not required.
So we move on, is that?
We will move on, yes.
Okay.
So the agenda's been approved, with moving one
roll call.
item to
Still.
row E agenda, I know, and then we'll do a roll call. I've got this, thank you. Roll
We're
call, please,
moving it to
Michelle.
where, I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
We're going to move it to 9E.
Okay. Okay.
Michelle?
Councilmember Anderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Binkowski?
Yes.
Mayor Milan?
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Moffett? Yes. Councilmember Shepherd?
Yes.
Thanks. Next up, we have public comment for items on the agenda. If you'd like to speak to anything we have scheduled on our agenda this evening, we welcome you to the podium. We will give you 3 minutes. We ask that you state your name and your address.
Hi, I'm Jamie Gills, Takanochi, 1072 North Stephen. I just wanted to, actually, I have some questions about 9D that I'm hoping can be answered when it comes up to that point. I know you can't answer me now. But it's for the removal based on conviction of a crime. So I have 2 questions. The first is the crime. I'm curious, or any act undermining the public trust. I'm wondering what would fall under that and who makes that decision if it's one of those crimes, since they're not listed out separately or nothing is, excluded from that. And then the title of this is removal based on conviction of a crime. So in section D, should it include about people running for office or should that be somewhere else? And then the appeal process only talks about removing and not what somebody running can do. Right, and I'm not a lawyer, so maybe you can answer this during that time. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, we will move from public comment to item number 7, which is proclamations and presentations. This evening, we're going to celebrate National Library Week with a proclamation. This proclamation recognizing April 6th to 12th, 2025 as National Library Week. Whereas libraries spark creativity, fuel imagination, and inspire lifelong learning, offering a space where individuals of all ages can explore new ideas and be drawn to new possibilities. Whereas libraries serve as a vibrant community hubs, connecting people with knowledge, technology, and resources while fostering civic engagement, critical thinking, and lifelong learning. Whereas libraries provide free and equitable access to books, digital tools, and innovative programming, ensuring that all individuals, regardless of background, have the support they need to learn, connect, and thrive. Whereas libraries partner with schools, businesses, and organizations, connecting the dots to maximize resources, increase efficiency, and expand access to essential services, strengthening the entire community. Whereas libraries empower job seekers, entrepreneurs, and lifelong learners by providing access to resources, training, and opportunities that support career growth and economic success. Whereas libraries nurture young minds through story time, STEAM programs, and literacy initiatives, fostering curiosity and a love of learning that lasts a lifetime. Whereas libraries protect the right to read, think, and explore without censorship, standing as champions of intellectual freedom and free expression. Whereas dedicated librarians and library workers provide welcoming spaces that inspire discovery, collaboration, and creativity for all. Whereas libraries, librarians, and library workers across the country are joining together to celebrate National Library Week under the theme, Drawn to the Library. Now therefore it be resolved that the City Council of the City of Clawson proclaim April 6th through 12th, 2025 as National Library Week. During this week, I encourage all residents to visit our library, explore its resources, and celebrate all the ways that the library draws us together as a community. And if you participate and if you pay attention, our library has programming for people of all ages, and it's extremely welcoming. And if you go there, it will literally just make you smile because the people who are there want to be there, and it's a great place. It's a great place for the community to join together. So I'm glad we were able to do that today. Mr. Ricker?
Do you want to expand on why our director's not here?
Our director is celebrating a monumental 25th wedding anniversary this evening, and apparently there was good conversation because if you know Jenny, Jenny is extremely reliable and has a hard time putting anything in front of her responsibilities. So I'm so personally happy that she's not here, not that I wouldn't love to see Jenny here and be awkwardly encouraged and participate in a public thing, but I'm really glad she put her personal life first. So good job to those of you who encouraged her to do so. Probably too much, but that is a big deal. Moving on, we have consideration of approving the following consent agenda. Item A is minutes of the regular city council meeting held on Tuesday, March 18th, 2025. Item B, minutes of the special city council meeting held on Tuesday, March 25th, 2025, and the list of bills in the amount of $372,036.28.
Did we move item?
We did move them. I was waiting for someone to tell me. I wanted to see if anyone would catch it. But yes, we moved item B, so that one is going to 9E. So it's item A and C.
So moved.
Thank you. It was a
Support.
test. Good job. Roll call, please, Michelle.
Mayor Pro Tem Moffett?
Yes.
Councilmember Shepherd?
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Binkowski?
Yes.
Mayor Milan?
Yes. Thank you. We've approved our consent agenda, modified as it is, and we'll move on to item 9 under new business. We have consideration to host discussion on the financial impacts from the fiscal year 25-26 budget discussions held between the administration and city council. Mr. Raker.
You need a motion first, Mayor?
Madam Mayor, I move to host discussion on the financial impacts from the fiscal year 2025-2026 budget discussions held between the administration and the city council.
Support.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Raker, good job.
Thank you,
gentlemen.
Madam Mayor. Considerable advanced progress has been made on the FY 25-26 budget thanks to cooperative discussions between the City Council and the City Administration. City Council met with department heads on March 25th. During those discussions, department leadership explained what their needs and requests would be for the coming fiscal year. In advance and since then, the city, myself, and the finance director met with each department to ensure all requested items were considered. All requests have been included with an impact that will require the city to spend approximately $300,000, the exact numbers, $296,070 of our general fund balance for this year. For that year. In summation, we are intentionally spending some fund balance in the general fund to support needed projects. The general fund will end 25-26 with a fund balance estimated at $2.65 million. All other funds will also end with healthier manageable fund balances. The administration wishes to proceed with finalizing the budget, taking these requests from discussions into account. Additionally, we seek your perspective on this financial analysis and request some constructive discussion with the intent that a consensus can be reached. I have some additional amplifying notes as well. So I just want to remind everyone that this is an effort, an attempt to gain some consensus and some direction. So there are some exceptions. Everything discussed March 25th is in the budget discussion is factored in with the exception of holiday decor upgrades in the city electronic message board and also the request for extended hours at the library. So to date, the efforts in that regard, the study, we're looking at roughly $80,000 expenditure costs annually. We're thinking that'll probably wipe out their fund balance in probably 4 or 5 years. And also, we are meeting with the library board on the 8th to discuss that. Additionally, also improvements at the city park to include the tot lot will be included in the CIP. The tot lot came up as an option for the ARPA discussion when I requested thoughts from staff. I should have had that on the CIP all along. Also for the CIP, we will include the list of infrastructure bond improvement projects as an addendum, as was suggested by Nick Stepmans during the discussions last week. On the second page at the top, so this is where we're kind of getting into a little bit more of some of these impacts with the additional information. You're going to see that the cost of the SCBA is within the $545,000, which is the fence funds of the ARPA. Technically, the fund balance with that is $3.3 million. Taking into account the practice suggested by Pro Tem last year, we should not include the grant funding in the budget, which it is currently is not. But as of today, we do not know when we will be notified, and the possibility of denial on that grant is real. Therefore, I suggest we plan to spend nearly $300,000 for the SCBA, the SCBA's that are needed from the formerly fenced ARPA funds. That brings us to roughly $250,000 of the funds formerly known as ARPA. I further suggest we could use approximately $10,000 for holiday decorations, upgrades, which there's 116 lamp posts in the DDA area, to have a decoration every other one. That would be 58 posts with a cost of roughly $350, with one half coming from the DDA. That's roughly $10,000. Lastly, I received a quote on Thursday from the school district service provider regarding the electronic message board, and that cost is roughly $42,000, not including any additional signage that may be desired, fixed signage or make-ready site appropriations. So I used $50,000 for that, with a potential 15% cost sharing by the DDA, the library, and the school respectively, which would bring our costs down to $27,500. If we use the funds formerly known as ARPA, we would have $215,500 remaining, of which I suggest we allocate to be used at City Park for improvements to include, but not limited to, the skate park, play structures, and security cameras. Regardless, we anticipate the end of FY26, FY 25-26 to be approximately a 25 to 26% fund balance, which is $2.5 to $2.6 million respectively. And pending any questions, that's the impacts we have thus far and the takeaway from those discussions.
Is the $42,000 for the message board literally the board itself with?
The electronics.
Electronics, so
Yes.
is the building of that, is that something DPW could do? Make a base and? like,
So we have the
frame it
base
out?
now, but I know that the school district is desirous of some additional potential signage to help direct people to the actual school. That's kind of hidden in plain sight.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, any of us who visited other schools for sporting events or, whatever, kid activities, we know what it's like to drive around in circles when you're already there and you're now late. So let's make it easier for our visitors, right?
That's the intent, and also potentially, the sign is outside the DDA, but maybe getting some service fees from the DDA to utilize the board. And also, Jenny continues to work with the library board as far as potential partnership in utilizing that board in conjunction with the city, school, and the DDA.
Okay. Any questions? Sir?
A question for the city manager. Have you looked into the possibility of hiring a full-time on-staff city engineer? And before you answer, I just kind of want to state my rationale for this. The city has had an engineer in the past. Our ordinances are replete with what the city engineer should do. Obviously, they'd be in charge of managing all the various engineering projects, conducting inspections, preparing bid specs, and so forth. And this body has actually several times say that they worry about, not changing engineering firms because of not having institutional knowledge in-house. And to me, a city engineer would provide that institutional knowledge in-house, someone to make sure that all of our plans are organized and so forth. And think about what we've got coming down the pike here. $100 million in infrastructure improvements, possible renovations to the city hall, possible renovations to the Renshaw apartments, new apartments going up here and there. And I know I've missed a dozen things, but to me, it seems like this would be the perfect time for the city to go out, look for a city engineer, someone who has experience and can take on these projects without paying the exorbitant fees of an outside engineer.
The short answer is no. The longer answer is, I believe, and maybe Michelle or Nick, if you have some institutional knowledge to share, even when you did have an engineer on staff, that you still had engineering services that were contracted out for various bigger projects. With a contract engineer, we don't just get an engineer for a civil endeavor, we get all the other engineering attributes as well, whether it's architecture, the assessment of the utilities. It's not just a one person, and I don't think a singular person hired by the city could perform all those functions.
Well, I never suggested that one person hired by the city could perform all those functions. And obviously, the engineering for large road, sewer, water projects would be farmed out. But to have someone to actually prepare the bid spec for those projects and to do that in-house could be a significant cost savings. And I'm wondering if the city manager would perhaps do a cost-benefit analysis and bring that back to us in our budget discussions.
I'm not prepared or willing to do that.
Anyone else?
No, I just think that if there's that cost savings that you say, I'm curious of what that cost savings that you see.
I'm asking for him to do the cost-benefit analysis. We pay AEW
Yeah.
to send a guy out and sit in a truck and watch and make sure that that concrete is poured to the proper depth, make sure the aggregate is correct. We pay for these services that literally we do not need to pay for, especially if we did it in-house. I mean, you're paying tens of thousands of dollars for some of this work. And I'm asking if we could do it cheaper, and that's why I want a cost-benefit analysis.
I think it would be kind of analogous to if, like, you had an in-house lawyer at the company who, like, at the places I've worked, there's been in-house counsel, and they don't know how to handle all the lawsuits, but they know how to, like, farm it out to the appropriate other outside counsel, but they're sort of your subject matter expert in-house, so you don't have to farm everything out. I mean, I think it would be interesting. We did have someone in that capacity before, but they weren't a degreed engineer. We used to have someone who could be our authority, and it might cut down on some of the stuff that we have to farm out or get opinions on. We would have someone that's just working for the city in that capacity. Seems like it might be prudent at least to look at, if it would be beneficial for the city or not to do something like that.
I just think that, maybe in a city that's much larger than ours, but 2.2 square miles, I just can't see that being that benefit, right? So
$100 million in infrastructure.
It's $64.5 million.
It's $64 million.
Yeah.
That's how much the bond's for. How much is really there?
That's all we can spend.
Exactly.
Lead pipe improvements, constant HVAC troubles at the library. I mean, I really, listen, the city's always been 2.2 square miles, and we've had an engineer before.
yeah, we don't have one now.
Didn't have an engineer. You had someone by trade that kind of grew into and functioned in that capacity, but you still farmed out a lot of it. In our neighboring communities, they do have some staff that are engineering staff, but they also farm out to other firms as well.
I agree that that's going to have to happen, but I'm wondering if we can really do a deep dive and see if
The last
if
time
we
you
can
won
do
your
it.
council member, you cost the city $49,000. So I would encourage us not to continue on.
I'd love to see the numbers on that too, city manager.
They're
So,
actually part of a budget item, not budget item, but an agenda item that we voted on, and I explained it to council.
I think I concur with Councilmember Shepherd that if we were a larger city, we might be able to justify that expense, but engineers don't come cheap. So I don't think that we can justify the expense in light of what the work is to be done.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Just like in the finance world, the engineering world is also experiencing shortages where you're not going to find we're not going to have the financial capability to attract some singular person to take on this job when the firm that we actually contract with has challenges attracting talent as well.
They have ability of size of scale. I'm sorry, what's the term? I can't think of it.
Economies of scale.
Economies of scale. They have economies of scale, right? That they can do these things in-house for them and then farm it out to us. If we have just one person that's doing that, I mean, if they're not up to the task, then how do we, judge them, right? We do have an opportunity at some point in time. We're not married to AEW. Right? We have an opportunity to go and take a look at them. But right now, when I talked about institutional knowledge, it's because of the programs that they're working on right now. If you're going to change the program and go to somebody different, then that's going to be costly.
And as I said last time we had this discussion, we always have more engineering work to be done. And according to these rationale, we can never, ever change our engineer because there's always something coming up. I suggest this, and I hate the negativity of this council. It's always what cannot be done.
Many things can be done, not everything should be done. We just seem to have a lot of should not be dones popping up.
I just see it as a boondoggle. It's the fact that, when we come back and find that, gee, it's going to be costly, more costly, because we're going to have to pay an engineer on staff $250,000. Right, and then the training on top of that to make sure that they're capable of doing the job. Whereas if we farm that out and privatize it, gee, that's an awful word, that they are already in the program where they can provide us those services quickly. And whether it's AEW or somebody else, I think I'd rather rely on their expertise than somebody that we said, gee, I hope you can do the job.
And the scope is broad for all the things we have coming up. One person would not be able to do all that needs to be done, nor would they have that scope of knowledge. So there is a benefit to having, all municipalities probably use outside sources, especially for civil work and stuff, right? They have to. They don't have that knowledge. They can't carry a staff to do all those things. From what I hear you saying, it's kind of like an administrative position, basically, who's ensuring that what the needs of the cities are being met against what needs to be farmed out, period. But that's city manager purview. How he handles that staff, I guess, is how I would kind of drop that one. If we keep in line of where we're supposed to be, that's his responsibility.
I think the city's on a very good trajectory to deal with a lot of woes that have been overdue, and I don't see the merits in his suggestion.
Okay, where are we on this?
We're at questions in regards to.
Yes. Does anyone have any questions regarding to the proposal Mr. Raker laid out for the upcoming budget? Would it be appropriate to make a motion to approve what you've brought before us? Would you be comfortable with that?
No, ma'am. No, there was no,
Just my
last year,
thought.
there was no need for,
Okay.
we just had a conversation. It was just getting direction from you. So we will then make the budget in accordance with the discussion and understandings that I've shared with you. And it'll be briefed at the April 15th meeting.
Okay, great, sounds good. Anything else? Okay, we'll move on to our next item, item number 9B. We have discussion of establishing workshop dates for the upcoming fiscal year 25-26 budget.
Madam Mayor, I move to host discussion on establishing workshop dates for the upcoming fiscal year 2025-2026 budget.
Support.
Thank you. Mr. Raker.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Having just heard the budget pre-brief, the council is reminded that the budget will be presented at the next council meeting on April 15th. City Council and the administration have worked diligently in advance to develop development of budget goals and objectives for the fiscal year 25-26. The mayor and all members of council have confirmed that they are available for budget workshops on Tuesdays, April 22nd and 29th. This year's proposed budget timeline had council move the first meeting in May to Wednesday, May 7th, in order to avoid having a council meeting on the day of the special election. It will be at this meeting where the final budget is presented for council's approval in accordance with the charter. Once the council is satisfied with the budget, the need for workshops or any remaining workshops can be canceled.
So I had mentioned, I think to you, Mr. Riker, that I have a bunch of travel in April, and unfortunately, I just got my travel for work finalized today, and I will be gone the 18th through May 2nd, so I will not be in town those days. Certainly,
That's a big block of time.
right? Indiana, Texas, Colorado, Texas, Texas, Texas.
You'll be silver in no time.
So, you know, my band, no. But I'm just one person.
To that end, Pro Tem, I did take that into account, which is why they were Tuesdays.
I know,
You told me not the end of the weeks.
That's what it was supposed to be. It's just not. So,
Fair enough.
yeah. So I'm just letting you know, like I said, I'm one person. You're a quorum without me. I can try and tune in the evening and watch it, but I'm not going to be here.
We also are available, any of your questions in advance. We've done that for the last 3 years as well. We've made ourselves available to council if there's anything that council wants to discuss in advance or has a question, would like to look at additional documentation, whatever it may be.
And
So
I
if
appreciate
there's
you
any
having
questions-
done that in the past. That's appreciated.
So if someone would like to make a motion to have those two, or if council sees differently.
22nd and 29th?
That's correct,
Okay.
unless someone has a different idea.
We have to have it before May, am I correct?
There's
much.
nothing that requires you to have any workshops, but historically, we've had established workshops, and I think historically, we would at least have one, and then the other ones have been canceled.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we hold the budget workshops on Tuesdays, April 22nd and 29th.
Support.
Can we get a time as far as?
Can we do,
We can do early, we can do, but I think, Mary, you were always saying like 6:15 or 6, if you want to do 6:30?
I can do 6:30 if you, I'll make myself do 6:30.
6:30?
If I fly in at 6:35, if forgive me.
What time works?
Historically, we've done them a little
Fine.
bit early at 7.
That's,
But if you wanna go
I'd prefer to still do 7, depending on what.
Okay, I'm good with that.
Okay.
So be it.
All right, 7 o'clock, please.
Mr. Binkowski, did you have other comments?
If I have any comments, I'll raise my hand. Thank you.
I thought you raised your hand, so I was just trying to make sure I didn't omit your concerns, so thanks for that. Roll call, please. Michelle?
Councilmember Anderson,
Yes.
Councilmember Binkowski,
Yes.
Mayor Milan,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Moffett,
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson, Shepherd, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Thank you. We've just agreed to host budget workshop dates on April 22nd and 29th at 7 PM. Next up, we have Agenda Item 9C, which is consideration of a second reading and adoption of ordinance number 790 to amend the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 14, Animals, Article 1 in general, Section 14-3, Domestic Chickens, to add educational facilities.
So moved.
Support.
Nick?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Last fall, a business owner located at 456 East 14 Mile spoke during a council meeting about the domestic chicken ordinance. The current ordinance 14-3 domestic chickens states that any person residing in a residential zoned property in a single-family detached structure may obtain a permit from the city, may keep per household not more than 4 hen chickens in the city for personal use only and not for any business or commercial use. If it is the council's wish, the ordinance can be amended by adding language extending the ordinance to educational facilities as outlined in the proposed ordinance amendment. This is a second reading. The first reading was held on March 18th, 2025.
Roll call, please. Michelle?
Councilmember Binkowski,
Yes.
Mayor Milan,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Moffett,
Yes.
Councilmember Shepherd.
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Thank you. Our ordinance will be changed to reflect that educational facilities be approved for hosting domestic chickens. Agenda Item 9D is consideration of a second reading and adoption of ordinance number 791 to amend Clausen Code of Ordinances, Chapter 2, Administration, Article 4, Departments, adding Section 2-148, establishing a removal process for elected and appointed officials convicted of crimes.
Madam Mayor, I move the consideration of second reading and adoption of an ordinance number 791 to amend Clausen Code of Ordinances, Chapter 2, Administration, Article 4, Departments, adding Section 2-148, establishing a removal process for elected and appointed officials convicted of crimes be approved.
Support.
Mr. Raker?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The idea of this ordinance came through discussion regarding the ethics ordinance. Within the ordinance working group, which is comprised of the city attorney, key staff, and myself, the working group addresses priorities and develops language for the ordinance committee's consideration. This item was discussed at both the January 7th and 21st ordinance committee meetings. As Section 1 purpose of this ordinance states, the purpose of this ordinance is to uphold the public trust and ensure the integrity of the city of Clawson by providing for the termination of employment or removal from office of employees, elected officials, and appointed officials who are convicted of crimes that undermine their ability to serve the public effectively. At the February 4th City Council meeting, after considerable discussion, an amendment was considered to include a section to identify the authority responsible to notify the governor for separation of an elected official. It was discussed that this ordinance be reviewed by the Ordinance Review Committee prior to reconsideration of the first reading at a future council meeting, which was the last meeting. The original motion then was voted on to include the amendment. The first reading was also at the last meeting, March 18th.
Thank you. I'd like to start this. I sat in the ordinance committee meetings when we discussed this, and initially I had one set of concerns, which was the definition of what a crime would be. And as I did agree with it last time around, and as I thought about it, as we've come upon this again, and I looked at it again today, I'm kind of unsettled on the definition of crime, on the vagueness of the definition of crime, and I'm asking, I know we have this before us, but what can be done to tighten that up so that we do have an ordinance that addresses misconduct? Because I'd like to say that recent events, to me, I'd like to throw specifics on the list, because I would like certain things to not be ignored as maybe unbecoming behavior, but I would never want this to be used, as some other things have been by other people, as a tool or a weapon towards any one person. That bothers me a lot.
Yes, ma'am. I think, if I may, and I think I'm happy to address that concern. You're absolutely correct, a large part of the conversations that we've had all along. And a portion of the difficulty that arises, ma'am, with respect to crafting an ordinance such as this one, is that we have about a couple of thousand misdemeanors on the books and felonies to boot in the state of Michigan. And so when we talk about addressing a lot, using specific examples, I suppose we could do that. We can go back and offer exactly those kind of amendments, but it makes sense that we have an articulation of a baseline standard. So in asking the gentlelady, which asked some questions, I think that, as I was attempting to take notes and craft the answer, perhaps it will guide the conversation. One of the ways that we articulate a standard, in my mind, and the way the Ordinance Review Committee agreed on, was to say, for example, with respect to undermining the public trust. There was some conversation with respect to that at various points. That deals with some of those misdemeanors that deal with abuse of office, right? It's a term of art in law. These are old misdemeanors, but that the state will prosecute someone for abuse of office. Should we list those misdemeanors? If this body wishes it, of course, it's your ordinance. We can, of course, do so. Perhaps it will make this ordinance cumbersome with respect to crimes of moral turpitude, which deal in crimes that have to do with theft, dishonesty, things of that nature. Could you articulate specific examples of those misdemeanors, right? So retail fraud, theft, embezzlement, so on and so forth, and go down the list. You could. It's entirely your pleasure, obviously, your ordinance. It will just make the ordinance cumbersome. I think that's why we articulate those baseline kind of concepts that are key terms in law for us to be able to narrow down and go down the list of analysis. If you recall, ma'am, and if you look at the ordinance itself, you look at the decision making. We talked during the review committee and the working group between all of us prior to obviously this matter coming before this body, in terms of in order to articulate who makes the decision. Well, there's obviously two paths. One comes before you as a board. The other one that deals with employees goes to the city manager, right? That's how the determination goes. And with respect to answering the question on the appeal, with respect to the appeal, we reference state law. And we did that, if Madam Mayor, you recall, we did that for good reason, because obviously the paths available to appointed officials that fall under the city manager's purview, they would have a certain pathway, which deals in labor law and employment law, as far as what state law provides to them as rights under any such consideration. Whereas for elected officials, it's entirely different, right? We would deal with election law, perhaps, and the action that would be available to any elected official if they were to deem the application of the ordinance incorrect would be by way of action in the circuit court, and it's one of my favorite writs. It's called a writ of mandamus, where they seek a circuit court's acquiescence and authority to be able to be instituted back. So that's for those reasons. For example, we couldn't necessarily articulate the appeal because we would have to go down an analysis, step by step. That may not make sense. May make this ordinance cumbersome, and not just this ordinance, but any ordinance. I think you'd be hard pressed. You, meaning the body, would be hard pressed to articulate an ordinance at a standard in that particular fashion.
So I know that's exactly what you said the first time we sat and talked about this, and it kind of appeased my fears a little bit, but then as I thought about it more and more, it's subjective to human interpretation every time. All of these things would be, and
Well, in the sense, if I may, just to think about the actual practical dimension of it, how would it work, right? If you imagine at one point or another, an employee of the city would notify, or the city manager would find that someone that they've hired, for example, after Mr. Pollack retires and we hire the new finance director, that person is convicted at some court somewhere of a crime of dishonesty or theft or embezzlement. Should the city manager have the authority to be able to take action pursuant to our ordinance? Would that fall under crimes of moral turpitude? Of course, right? It's a crime of dishonesty. It would fall right, squarely within it. I would submit, and this body in your previous vote stood exactly for that proposition. You stated that, yes, that should fall in his authority. I can give you another example, again, using extreme examples because we must, I think. Another example would be if the city manager at one point or another were to hire somebody who works at Hunter and working with vulnerable adults or older people, and that person is convicted of a criminal sexual conduct somewhere, like rape. Should the city manager have the authority to be able to do something about that, or should they not? And I think this ordinance stands for that proposition.
are those things not addressed anywhere else through regular employment law?
Well, the city manager can fire somebody at will, right? They're at will employees. However, should the city bear the brunt of whatever resulting litigation that comes short of having an ordinance like this, which we would be, because that's the actions that I'm referring to are actions that are handled or they're happening elsewhere, not related to city work, right? Think about that particular step. So that's sort of what we're dealing with, and I can certainly understand your concern in that regard, but with that concern, we would be really hampered, I think, going forward. We would be just hampered, I think, from always coming up with an ordinance.
Well, and I appreciate you're going through this with me again, because we did it at length before.
No,
And it's just, I think, it really matters to me that we don't have weapons that can be utilized against people, because we just want to have weapons to be utilized against certain people. And I am not saying anyone here would do that, but once this is on our books, we don't know that it won't be done before. Look at our
And I
ethics
think-
committee, for example, right? As an example of something that was set up for, I'm assuming good, but was used as a weapon repeatedly. And now we don't even know, we would struggle to say what the point of that is based on past practice.
And my apologies, I didn't mean to interrupt, Madam Mayor, but with respect to, again, looking at the separation of the two, right, appointed versus elected officials, if you look at the elected officials, obviously the determination is coming from this body, right? There's a public hearing before this body. With respect to the city managers, as we indicated, he already has that authority inherently because they're at-will employees. They're just protecting the city from any resulting action. Absurd as that is to say, but we shouldn't have to pay, perhaps, arguably, anything above and beyond other than just pure separation because it is for cause and with good cause and pursuant to our ordinance.
Is it possible to provide a greater definition of moral turpitude? Because I think that's That's my hitting point,
Oh, I
is the
see.
moral turpitude.
Yeah, and I think Mayor Pro Tem mentioned that last time, and we had gone through it. Again, of course you could. We can go, and we can pass this today, we can come back and articulate the standard even further and make an amendment to it, since we are at the second reading. But, so we definitely could. Crime as a moral turpitude is a term of art in law, and it means, it literally, it deals with, I was looking, just in anticipation of the question, just in case, because we fielded it last time. It deals with conduct that is considered inherently base, vile, or depraved, and contrary to the accepted standard of morality and justice as codified in law. It encompasses actions that violate societal norms of honesty and integrity, such as fraud and theft, right? And that's what we're dealing with. In immigration law, for example, we deal with, and just so you're aware, and I believe I may have answered this or added this portion of it, which is true. In immigration law, and that's what we look to because that's where the standard comes from in this particular area. It's any crime of fraud, theft, dishonesty, right? Retail fraud, embezzlement, things of that nature, punishable by up to a year in jail or more. So it's a misdemeanor, but it's a year in jail or more.
And that's a standard definition, that is something that anyone could look up moral turpitude in the legal
Yes, ma'am.
scene and come up with the exact same standards.
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks, and I know I've asked you all of these before, and with that,
It's
I'm
fair.
okay.
It's more
Okay.
than fair. It's more
Yeah.
than fair.
And also, I just want to state that there is nothing in here that says we go backwards for anyone. This is moving forward.
Yes, ma'am.
So
We can.
it
Yeah,
will not
that's-
be a witch hunt for anyone who may have acted, I mean, unless there's something horribly egregious in someone's history that just happens to come up, but this is not a
We
plan
wouldn't be able
to
to.
go backwards.
Yeah, we wouldn't be able to. We can only create laws looking forward. In the
Right.
Constitution, we have, in the United States Constitution, we have a prohibition on creating ex post facto laws.
Right.
So we would never be able to look back.
Okay, thank you. You've addressed my question. Does anyone else have questions?
So I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry. I just, can you just circle back on the comment that was brought up during public comment and help me understand the phrase acts that undermine the public trust? Is that, because the term acts, is that, again, a whole section of law that says this is, or is it just acts like anything that someone does?
Oh, no. Yes, ma'am. We're talking about convictions, right? So with acts here, we're talking about convictions, meaning an act that led someone to face a prosecution in a court of law, go to trial and or plead guilty, lose and be found guilty and or plead guilty to a crime. That's what act means in this context.
And that's, again, a very specific legal term. Like, someone couldn't take the ordinance and say, well, she acted in this manner and undermined public trust by doing, blah, blah, blah.
No, ma'am. Absolutely not.
Okay.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Councilmember Anderson?
Yes, I mean, Rennis, we know that attorneys make their living exploiting loosely worded contracts and laws. So I sympathize with the desire to tighten it up.
Yes.
Hopefully, maybe you can define the terms in the ordinance instead of making people do a Google search for them. Also, I'm concerned with talking about violating the public trust. So you talk about potential misdemeanors. I mean, I can see where felonies would definitely be covered.
Sure.
Misdemeanors, it seems, is a much broader area.
It is.
Some misdemeanors will put you in jail, some will not. And there's certain terms. Perhaps we should define the level. I know there's many misdemeanors, you can't list them all. Perhaps list the level of severity of misdemeanor we're
Yes.
talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, again, once you vote today, if you vote to pass it, great, there's some period of time that while it takes effect, we can go back to the Ordinance Review Committee, deal exactly with those portions and come right back to you with a further articulation of, and it sounds like a desire for specifying to the greatest extent possible without making this as cumbersome as perhaps we ought not to, but certainly we could do that. I mean, absolutely, goes without saying.
But also, if we vote it down today, then it has to go back and substantively change and come back in a more desirable form as well, correct?
Yes, if you so.
I'm
certainly
just
they
putting
could
it
have-
out there
Yeah,
that
yes,
we,
yes.
so perhaps we should consider having a ordinance that meets everybody's criteria for specificity and vote positively on something that's more specific as opposed to saying, well, we're going to change it down the road because down the road is down the road, and we don't know when that's gonna happen, so.
So, but if we vote it down, it's,
Well, but think about, for a moment, if I may, just a slight caveat to the commentary. Changing is substantively, I'm not sure that articulating specifics is a substantive change to it, because we're still operating within the same.
Well, the other one we turned down, you only changed one sentence in it, and that was a substantive change.
These may not be substantive to an attorney, but they may very well be substantive to an average citizen.
Right.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, that may well be the case. Again, it's your ordinance. In my estimation, perhaps we need to have one on the books, just like we've done in the past, and then come back after the process that we followed to get here, come back after we go to the ordinance review committee, have the articulation, bring it back to you with a proposed amendment. Just a thought, given that you are at the second reading, but entirely your pleasure, obviously.
Yep.
Any other questions? Roll call, please, Michelle?
Mayor Milan,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Moffett,
No.
Councilmember Shepherd,
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson,
No.
Councilor Binkowski.
No.
Okay, then that doesn't pass, then we will go back to committee and start all over again with better definitions.
Yes, ma'am.
Right? Okay, it's fair. Everybody wins on that one.
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry for the rehash of what we've done before.
Not at all.
But I think it's better in the end.
Yes, ma'am.
Under item 9D, we have consideration of reading and adoption of an ordinance to amend Clausen Code of Ordinances, Chapter 2, Administration, Article 4, Departments, adding Section 2, 148. Oh, no, we just did that, sorry, that's my last page. Okay, so the next one is 9E, which we don't have a page for, which is to discuss the agenda, the minutes that we just
Yeah.
removed
Minutes of
from.
the special council meeting.
I missed a special council meeting. I don't have any more papers. Hold on, I'll just go back to this then. Okay, I do not have any more papers. We're not there, we're not there. Bear with me, another page. How about existing chicken ordinance, conviction ordinances? That's all I have.
90.
9E
I have 9A.
was moved,
D.
Is
No, I said that. I said 9E that we moved,
Right.
and you guys said I missed something else.
We're
We're on 9E, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
it's moving, yeah.
Thank you for helping me, not helping me on this side. I'm looking for something that doesn't exist. So we're going to talk about item 9E, which is the agenda minutes that we did not approve.
If someone makes a motion to approve it, we can discuss it.
So I move we have a discussion. Is that the, Mr. Nushai? The appropriate motion is I move,
To approve the minutes would be the motion, and then if it's seconded, you would have a discussion.
so then
And if it
to
voted-
not approve the minutes, we would have to vote no. Or I could say I approve, or I move that the minutes be sent back to be revised and submitted at the next meeting.
We would want, Mayor Pro Tem, a positively worded motion, which means a motion to approve the minutes. Understanding that you may vote no on it.
Okay, gotcha.
But that's how you'd want to do the motion.
So I move we approve the minutes from the March 25th special council meeting.
Support.
So,
Councilmember Binkowski?
oh, go ahead.
I would just respectfully suggest, since the PowerPoint slides that we watched during the meeting were not in the council packet beforehand, that they be included in the minutes so that the people can see exactly what we were seeing without having to go and watch the entire 2.5 hours of YouTube video. I think it's proper, and that's my thought on this.
And isn't it, Mr. Nushai, for the Open Meetings Act, since it wasn't in, the slides were not in the packet, and so that to be consistent with the Open Meeting Act, documents presented during the course of the meeting should be included in the minutes to be compliant with the Open Meetings Act and distribution of materials. And
believe-
that, in that light, I think they should be included in the minutes.
I think that's fair, ma'am. I know that during that meeting, though, they were presented, obviously, and they were available for all to see. So.
But they weren't in the packets
Yeah, I guess I wasn't aware of
previously or anything, so I just feel like it's compliant with the Open Meetings Act to have them like memorialized in the minutes.
They,
Even though the
if
information is there in a
all the
different format?
information's there.
It's not word for word, though. There's other stuff that's in the slides that's not here.
I took it right from the slides.
Every single word from the slides?
Yes. The pictures are missing.
I'm just, thinking of the Open Meetings Act and the document having
Well,
been
fair
presented.
question. Are meeting minutes are traditionally words. Are pictures required?
No, I'm not concerned about the
That's close.
pictures, but yeah, just
Sure,
the,
if the pictures are missing,
yeah.
is that a violation of the Open Meetings Act? If we have illiterate members of the community that can't read and need a picture, and yes, I'm not joking, there was a time in this country where a large percentage of our citizens could not read. So with that, please answer.
Robert's Rules of Order have been around for some time, but I'm not sure that they've dealt with that particular concern. I think in fairness, you can include you can include the pictures. They're meant to be an enhancement, not a replacement of obviously, the minutes themselves. Only the minutes are required for purposes of the meeting itself. The fact that it was shown on the screen for the entire room and viewing public to see, I think I would be satisfied, but you could go, obviously, and include them just to cover our bases, absolutely, to add the picture somehow.
I think this has gone off the rails. We have honored the requirement of having to memorialize what was before council in the minutes, and I think we should move on, please.
Motion right now, which, do we have a motion? Okay. We have a motion
Is there a
to
motion?
approve the minutes.
To approve the minutes, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, that's a,
Roll call, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Moffett?
Oh, I'm sorry, no.
Councilmember Shepherd?
yes.
Councilmember Anderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Binkowski?
No.
Mayor Milan?
Yes. Thank you. The minutes will stand as is. Michelle, thanks for putting that information in there for future. Perhaps think about doing an addition, just for clarity's sake. Item number 10 is unfinished business. Do we have any unfinished business? Good answer. We'll move to item number 11, which is public comments for items not on the agenda. If you'd like to speak to any item that is not on our agenda, we welcome you to the podium. We ask that you give your name and address, and we'll give you 3 minutes.
Excuse me, my name's Stan, Madison Heights resident. On February 4th, I did come to the city council and address a situation that happened to my son at a private school here in Clawson. Mayor, when I was done speaking, you had said to me that someone would reach out to me in regards to my concerns, which I think are very, very important to be recognized. After 2 weeks waiting, didn't hear from nobody. So I did call the office, your office, left a couple voicemails, as well as spoke to maybe one of your assistants, as well as sent a couple emails. So that was the 3rd and 4th week after I came to this council. Early March, I went and FOIA'd some more information through the police department, and the police department kind of dragged their feet a little bit, went a couple days past the timeline, but Chief Boss was informed of my FOIA, and she was the one to make the decision on what could and could not be released. So Chief Boss, I would assume, would have been brought to attention of what I brought to this council's attention. So first, I do have a question is, you did say that someone would speak out, and I haven't heard from anybody. So my question to you would be, why would that have happened?
I'm sorry, but this isn't a dialogue time. This is public comment. You're allowed to give comments. I would ask that you speak with the city manager or Nick after the meeting.
Okay.
I actually don't even have an office here, but I do generally get information. They'll be happy to help you. And I'm sorry that this happened to you. We'll follow up on it.
Okay.
That's all I can say, so I apologize.
All right, awesome. So maybe someone can reach out to me, because I'm hoping to have an opportunity to have a meeting with the city attorney, as well as yourself, as any other members of the board, if possible.
If you can just hang out after the meeting, we will see you after the meeting if you can
Okay.
hang out for that
All
long.
right.
Thank you. Anybody else? Come on up.
How much time do I have?
3 minutes, make it count.
Okay, first of all, I don't profess to be my name is Wayne O'Neill, I'm a resident.
Address, please.
And I don't profess to be half the clerk as Michelle, but I am a certified municipal clerk. And the only thing the clerk has to put in the minutes are action items, period. Motions, and that's it. No discussion, no pictures, none of that stuff, so. And to come to the city attorney's defense, you cannot write an ordinance that's so tight that somebody won't have a problem with it. So it's like trying to do a horse and you wind up with a camel. Do the best you can with what you have. I have not been in town for some time, but my wife had the council meeting on at the last meeting. And the mayor was talking about somebody on the council, and it sounds like somebody's a bully. And I was totally taken aback that you had to go on for as long as you did about some things that were going on. And I think that we should have a modicum of respect for each one of us that are in office here. Okay? The other thing is, under your ethics ordinance, you have to recuse yourselves from voting on certain things that you might have a conflict of interest. So if a attorney were to have worked for a particular law firm at one time, that attorney should not be voting on another attorney's contract if they had worked for that law firm beforehand. And I believe you have a member of your council who's an attorney that has worked for Howard & Howard in the past. And you are with Howard & Howard, are you not?
No, sir.
No, you're not there with them anymore?
No, no.
That's even
Never
better.
have.
I thought you were with Howard.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, I apologize. I'm
I
speaking. when
apologize. I
shouldn't.
thought you were with
You know
Howard
how
& Howard.
this
I thought you were.
Fair.
Anyway, the other thing is with reference to your city manager and your staff. The council needs to understand that there's administrative and legislative. And I've noticed that from time to time, the minority on councils has a propensity to get off on a tangent and try to do a little bit of micromanaging. Your manager is supposed to bring items to you for action. And basically, you're not gonna like this. You are a rubber stamp. You are. They bring things to you that they cannot do themselves. By ordinance and by law, there's things that you have to do. You have to approve the budget, you have to approve expenditures, the warrant, and all that stuff. All these other things that you wanna talk about, did they do this, did they do that? Do I come into City Hall to see how they're doing? You have no business doing any of that stuff. Okay, you're legislative and they're administrative. And I can't,
Time.
I got a million things I wanna talk about, but the other thing is vote yes on the charter amendments.
Thank you for that. Mr. O'Neill, would you please state your address so that I can say that I asked? You won't state your address? Okay. I asked, okay. Whomever would like to come up.
My name's Darlene McDaniel. I live on Elmwood and Clawson. I don't know if you can answer this, but when are they gonna start building at Sham? I've heard that they can't build for 2 years because the ground is contaminated. Is that true? Don't know?
Yeah, no.
That's the first I've ever heard of that.
Yeah.
So when are they gonna start building?
Nick, are you at liberty?
Can I answer the question?
You may, Nick,
Okay.
yes.
So I don't recall the date exactly, but earlier this year, in front of the Planning Commission, they approved a preliminary site condominium, which allowed the applicant and developer to work on engineering plans. They've recently submitted those and are under review by our engineering consultant. Once they're reviewed and approved, the plan will go back in front of Planning Commission for approval and to follow the development procedure. Once the Planning Commission approves it, whenever that may be, it'll come to City Council for final approval. So, I mean, I would just be guessing a timeline as when that would come, but it'll
And it's
come
gonna be
before both
houses.
bodies.
39 houses.
That's what's proposed currently, yes.
Okay, my next question is, I received my absentee ballot yesterday. Can anyone tell me approximately what this special election's gonna run the taxpayers? You have to have a general idea.
So, technically, this is not a back and forth. This is a comment section. I think it'd be
I'm
best if,
just asking a question.
right, and it's a comment, not a question and answer. And, I mean, you're welcome to answer it. It's been answered many times, but
We'll talk to you with the city clerk after the meeting.
Okay, my last question is, why are we having this special election when we already voted on it in November? I personally my tax dollars don't want to pay for this. And I think it's a waste of money because certain people don't like how we voted. It seems wrong. It seems wrong.
Thank you. Anybody else? Come on up.
We have a Facebook page you can go to, check with these ladies behind you. I'm glad you all can't talk to me. My name is Maxine Stein. I live at 312 Pear Street, and I'm gonna talk real fast because I got a lot to say about this. I recently got involved because of things that I saw when I was watching city council meetings, and you are 100% right. I've never seen anything as dysfunctional and unprofessional as I saw at the last city council meeting. That's the first thing. The second thing is what I don't understand who paid for this "In God We Trust" sign. This is a government building. Okay, I can understand the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll just sit there. I can understand a welcoming, warm prayer. I'll just sit there. But this is a government building. That needs to go. And if it doesn't go, I will see a lawyer about it. Okay? The city of Clawson is exclusive enough. There is not enough inclusivity of this city as it is. That needs to go. This room needs to be filled. Why are we having another election? Who said? Who decided? We already voted for that in November, people. If you don't remember, get your charters out. And you are a very rude man. You need to take some happy pills or go to the bathroom or something.
Madam Mayor, point of order.
Point of order. Good job. Thank you. Anybody else?
Oh, you are so very
Hi.
Hi.
Me again, Jamie Gills, Takanochi, 1072 North Stephen. I just did want to speak again about the special election. I know I did last time. I think that somebody on council actually said what I was thinking, right? Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. And I think that it was very inappropriate to ignore the voice of your voters, 58% of your voters, and say, but we don't like this. Exactly. We all had to weigh the whole thing. And you're not letting us weigh the whole thing again. You're saying, well, we're going to just take this one part that we don't like. And most of the arguments I've heard have been personal opinion of people on the council or a small number of people they've talked to, maybe 20 or so, that didn't like it. So I don't understand, again, why when you were elected to represent us, you choose to ignore us. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, nobody else. We'll close public comment and move to the city clerk's report. Michelle?
The only report I have tonight is that the absentee ballots were mailed on Thursday, March 27th, to the permanent voters and those that have requested a ballot. Just a reminder again of the temporary location moves of Precinct 1 Kenwood being moved to Precinct 3 Baker, and Precinct 4 High School being moved to Precinct 5 Grace Apostolic Church. That's all I have, Madam Mayor.
Approximately how many ballots are on that list that you mailed out?
Approximately, a little over 2,500 absentee ballots went out on Thursday, plus the individual ones that came in, and I'm not sure the exact number of those, but they're coming in slowly.
Okay, thank you. City Attorney's report, Mr. Nishai.
Madam Mayor, thank you. Just briefly, I wanted to touch base. I was asked to speak to the 14 and Main site. As you know, there's some ongoing litigation that we've held over that particular site, and it appears that we have a tentative resolution of that litigation where the property owner has tentatively agreed to do some preliminary remediation of the site in anticipation, obviously, of those plans proceeding forward through the planning commission or to the planning commission and beyond for final build. But in the meantime, we may have some temporary relief of the site, and we'll have more on that, more specifics on that by the next meeting. I'll keep you informed as such. Barring any questions, I have nothing else.
Can I ask a quick question? Just because I understand, I think there was a mailing or something that went out last week talking about the JARS lawsuit that prohibited us from putting the charter amendment that was on the last ballot in place in regard to the cannabis thing. And I guess I'm just looking for you to perhaps discuss very briefly how we complied with a court decision versus us deciding, like the council didn't say, we're not doing it.
No, ma'am.
It was a court decision that said you can't do it. And if you could just elaborate on that a little bit?
Yes, ma'am. Now, mind you, I'm not familiar with whatever mailing you're referring to.
It was just, you know what, my neighbor texted me, she got something, and we got a couple emails, people asking about it. It was on Facebook, and I just, that this council didn't decide to not, or to ignore the way people voted. It was a court case, and if you could just discuss that.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. After the election, I believe, or no, I'm sorry, it began before, but it was resolved after the election. There was a contender, JARS Cannabis, some company that I gather has marijuana, is part of the marijuana industry, filed an action to stop the city of Clawson's voted upon amendment to the charter from taking effect. The matter was filed in it's the lovely writ of mandamus I was just speaking about earlier. The writ of mandamus was filed in the circuit court for the Oakland County, and given that there had been litigation separate and distinct from us concerning a similar situation in Farmington Hills and several other communities, which had gone all the way to the Court of Appeals at the time. So the circuit court initially put a stay on the JARS versus City of Clawson, put a stay on the matter because the Farmington Hills case was proceeding to the Supreme Court. It filed for a writ of certiorari for the Supreme Court to have its consideration of that Court of Appeals decision. The Supreme Court eventually decided not to take that matter, which left the Court of Appeals decision as law. The Court of Appeals decision stated that the way that in the Farmington Hills case, the proponents of the marijuana amendments to the charters in those respective cases, which was almost identical to the proponents and the amendment that the city of Clawson passed. In that case, the Court of Appeals ruled that it was an improper way to amend a charter, given the subject matter and the nature of how it was done, because they were substantively the same, if not entirely the same. The Farmington Hills and other cases and the Clawson situation, the Oakland County Circuit Court, our judge, the judge that we had in the case, reopened the case, lifted the stay, and then issued a ruling on it, saying that we could not, that the amendment was null and void, basically. So that's where, my slightly longer version agrees with your short version that no, this council did not take any action that in any way, shape, or form made any vote of the public null and void in one way or another. It had nothing to do with this body.
Okay, thank you.
If I may.
Please.
Madam Mayor, so where do we stand regarding litigation, or can you speak regarding that from JARS?
From JARS? Oh, we have there was a stipulated order dismissed, so it was done.
Okay. So they've not come back?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. If you
I'm just curious because of what happened in Warren last week, approving unlimited retail for cannabis.
Yes.
Whether or not that would
is
stop
not
their motivation.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and that speaks to sort of the ongoing issue that we have as a community in the sense that obviously Clausen is a desirable piece of real estate in that particular market. And that's why over the years, we've fielded these proposed amendments. This time was just one charter amendment, but obviously before, we had two ordinance amendments several years ago, two ordinance amendments and a charter amendment that eventually made their way to the voters. And obviously, you will recall that you voted on this issue, and it was voted down. This time it was voted up, but the circuit court case, obviously, and Court of Appeals case made it impossible for that to take effect. It's an issue that's going to come back. At one point or another, this body and perhaps through the Planning Commission by way of zoning, but through this body ultimately, it may be wise for us to take up the issue, and palatable and desirable as it may be in certain respects. I think it's not an issue that's going to go away, so I imagine that it will make sense, some free legal advice, it may make sense to take it up on our own terms as opposed to be forced down the road perhaps.
I would just comment that we should all be paying attention to what's happening with what is it, CRA?
Yes, sir.
All right, and what's happening in the industry. The fact that, and I don't want to get into details about it, but, $30 are lost on the retail price from cannabis year over year, and that there seems to be a problem regarding the production and the control, or lack of control of it, that there doesn't seem to be any stability regarding this industry at this point. But again, it could change.
Yes, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. City Manager's report, Mr. Ricker?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Sewer cleaning and inspection continues, and we are currently at 17% complete with the citywide with the televising and cleaning of our sewers. We anticipate this project to be completed in August or before. As a reminder, we have a sectional map on the city of the city that is updated when necessary and is located on the city's website under DPW and engineering, and then under cleaning and televising sewers. Pending your questions, that's my report.
Mr. Raker, I'm curious, change topic a bit. What is the estimated cost of the upcoming special election in May?
So Michelle and I were talking about this, I think early or late last week, with taking the county into the cost for our county participation. And we're anticipating it being, and Michelle, please correct me, $20,000 to $25,000.
Probably at least 20,000. That was our original estimate was 18,000. And then with the understanding what the county contract will cost, we figure it's going to be close to 20, a little over 20.
20,000. Now, I believe we pay a council member $1,400 a year, is that correct? So 2 additional council members cost the city $2,800 a year. So if we go to 5, or shall we revert to 5 council members, it sounds like the cost of the election will be paid off in less than 10 years. So how everyone feels about the 7 to 5 issue, if you're talking cost savings, the 5-member council definitely is the less expensive proposal.
Okay. City Council comments. Councilmember Pinkowski.
Nothing for me.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Nothing.
Councilmember Anderson.
No comment.
And Councilmember Shepherd.
No comment this evening, thank you.
I'd just like to say thank you to everyone who came this evening and shared your concerns. We appreciate that. And I'd like to say a personal note of thanks to the many people who reached out to me after the meeting last week to provide me support and encouragement to continue this fun little trip here that we're all having, and to look towards the good and not to be distracted by bad actors. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to request that you all do the same thing. And then if anyone would like to make a motion to
Madam Mayor, motion to
dismiss.
adjourn?
Support.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Shepherd?
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Binkowski?
Yes.
Mayor Milan?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Moffett?
Yes.
Are dismissed. Thank you and good evening.